Hello again, everybody, and welcome to another segment of The Last Word. I'm the publisher of The Vegas Voice, Dan Roberts, and our goal is to introduce you to all the candidates running for political office. We're very lucky today to have Danielle Gallant, who is the Republican candidate for Assembly District 23. Danielle, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
You know, let's just start with the basics. Tell the audience a little bit about who you are and et cetera, et cetera. Let's start with that.
Okay. I'm a mom of two boys, 6 and 11. Fun, interesting, creative, precocious little boys.
Yeah.
And I'm also the owner of Guardian Realty. So we mostly do property management. We have about 300 units that we manage here in the Valley. So it allows me to see a very interesting perspective of the Valley.
Yeah. And again, you're not from Nevada. You're from, I believe, California?
Correct, yeah.
Yeah. And you moved here when and why?
Yes, so 9 years ago we moved here. My husband and I were living in a town called Brisbane, which is between South San Francisco and San Francisco. And we had a general construction company. He's a GC. And we could see the writing on the wall that California was not going to be a good place for us to stay. But as a self-employed person, it's really hard to make a move.
Yeah.
Because you don't get to just, pick up and get a job and start earning money. You have to build something all over again. And then there's always something, that straw that breaks the camel's back. And my parents had moved here many years, or like a few years prior. And my dad had a run-in with some gambling issues. And after 40 years of marriage, just left her in the middle of the night.
Oh my, yeah.
And she didn't really have much, financial resources to be able to continue to support herself. And so Paul, my husband, and I realized that the only way that we were going to be able to help support her was if we got out of California. Because we're making six figures there and we're poor.
Mm-hmm. Oh my, okay, yeah.
So I decided to get my real estate license, my broker's license, and my property management permit. Total career change, because I was a marriage and family therapist 15 years prior to.
Oh my, okay.
Yeah. But there's not much money in that.
Okay.
And I only have a family and a mom to take care of. So studied, got my license, and then I moved to Nevada or Henderson with our oldest son, Xander, and I lived with my mom for a year. And we built up Guardian, and Paul stayed in California and continued his business. And it took us about 15 months for us to finally be together. So we really made a massive commitment and sacrifice in order to be able to come to Nevada. And it was the best thing we ever did. Because in 5 short years, we built 2 businesses. We have 2 beautiful kids. I don't think we could have been able to afford or even fit a second kid in our little house in California. Maddox, he's just an absolute joy. And then, we were able to get my mom a house down the street from us, and her basic living expenses are covered. And she's in the kids' lives every day. She picks them up from school. She takes them to their after-school activities. It's just been a pleasure.
It's like living the American dream.
It is like living the American dream. And it's a lot of the reason why I decided to run.
Well, that's going to be my next question, because let's go into that. You mentioned you're a mother, you have 2 small children. You have a successful business, and this is your first time running for political office. So the number one question is, why in the world? why in the world would anybody do something like that?
I know. Everybody asks me that question. Because on top of that, if you ever see Paul and I together, you can see that we have a really good marriage and a really good friendship and truly enjoy each other. So why would I want to take time away from all of that? Yeah.
Yes.
So, it goes into my story a lot, is that I'm so grateful for the things that Nevada has provided for our family. I mean, don't get me wrong, it was a lot of hard work, but I wouldn't be a quarter of the way, where we are today if we stayed in California. And it's because of the benefits that Nevada provides to people with no state income tax and a much easier cost of living, lower cost of living, even though that seems to be rising. And that's part of the problem. We've had the last 2 sessions have not been pro-business. And they've really come down they've been more like on big government and less on our constituents and our small business owners. And I want to make sure that we preserve that in Nevada, and I'd like to see us go back to that. So that's one reason why I'm running. The other reason is property managers are, have been villainized the last few years. And even prior to that, the public's probably not aware, but the last 3, 4, 5 sessions, they have just been hammering at landlord rights. And sometimes it's for the betterment, but then other times it's not. And so what I'm seeing is that the scales, the balance, the fairness between landlords and tenants used to be more balanced, and now it's getting very heavy on the tenants. And what is that causing? That's causing higher rents and higher security deposits, much stricter qualifications to be able to rent a property, because the government has not protected landlords. And the only, I'm the last, line of defense for them. And I don't like being in that position. I want to know that the laws are going to protect my landlords so that we can give tenants second chances. I mean, we used to be a brokerage where we would give second chances. If you had an eviction within 5 years, we would go to the owner and say, look, here's their history. This is the progress that they're making. We really feel like, we'd like to give them another shot. We can't do that anymore.
Okay. So, and with that being one of your issues, I know you have a number of issues on your website.
I do.
Talk a little bit about that. I mean,
Okay.
So someone who is going to vote for you knows exactly what your political philosophy is.
Sure. So, on my website, I talk about, I think it's important that we support our men in blue. Henderson actually has a very good support system, but Metro has a problem. And I see that as a property manager because I have to deal with the police departments in every valley. And what happens in Las Vegas affects Henderson. And we have a low morale within that industry, within the police department. People are not joining, and that's going to affect our tourism. It's going to affect our housing prices, and it's going to affect just our overall, daily life and our quality of life. So that's one thing that's very, very important to me. The other thing is school choice. Now, I know as a senior citizen, a lot of them don't have young children,
Right.
but I keep coming back to this, is that if we need to improve our school system, because if we want to bring more industry, more economy, better doctors and nurses to this state, they need to feel secure that their children are going to be educated. So why would not doctors and nurses want to come to a state and they're highly educated and not have their children be highly
Right.
educated? So I think that really is going to play into solving a lot of our issues if we implement school choice. We have to start creating more opportunities and options for kids, because people don't fit in a box. I know my kids don't.
Right. And let me ask you this. I mean, as a first-time candidate and running as a Republican, and Nevada is Democrat right now, here's my question that I've been asking candidates. Assuming you win, but the Assembly is still Democrat or even Republican, or the Senate, whatever, or different governor, Republican or Democrat, do you feel comfortable working with the other side, or is the other side the enemy?
I don't think any of us are actually enemies. I think that everybody has something they can agree on. We just have to spend the time to figure out what that is, so that we can see what we agree on, and then kind of start digging into what it is that we disagree on, and seeing if some of those disagreements we can come towards the middle. As a marriage and family therapist, every successful marriage requires a good foundation, communication, honesty, and sometimes having to compromise on the little things.
Right.
And I think in government we have forgotten what it means to compromise on the little things, not the big stuff. Republicans and Democrats have very different views on what government should be. But I still think that there could be similarities between the two, that we could come together and make something happen.
Okay. And I guess what I'm fascinated by, and I don't know whether to admire you for it or say, you're out of your mind, is that as a mother with 2 children, are you prepared to go up to Carson City and spend days and maybe weeks away from the family?
So 4 months, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the plan is that I come home every weekend. And I have created a nice foundation and support system for the kids and my husband while I'm gone. So, because of COVID, we moved our office, into the house.
Right. Yeah, like everybody else.
Like
sure.
everybody else, and we have not gone back to an office. And so Anna, my admin, is there during the day. I have a wonderful woman that comes in about 20 hours a week that helps kind of keep the house in order, is there with the kids as well. My mom's 15 houses down. So I think between the three of us, because Paul's out all day, he doesn't like to be stuck inside. If he knows that he just needs to get home by 6 o'clock, but everything's done, because he's not great at like some of the domestic things, right? Which is fine, and we're okay. We all have our strengths and weaknesses. That we'll keep things running, and thank God for Zoom.
Yeah. Okay. No, positively. Here's the thing: the few moments that we have left, what would you like voters to know about you? They're going to vote for you because.
Sure. I have two other opponents, and everything that they want to know about me, they can find on my website. But there's one thing that sets me apart from my opponents, is that I'm the only one with experience going up to Carson City and actually advocating as a private citizen. I read those bill draft requests.
Right.
I draft questions and have in the past for legislators that are in committee. I have testified at hearings, and I've been very, very involved as a private citizen. So I understand what the job actually entails.
Okay, and you mentioned it before, you can mention it now. People want more information about you, your website, your philosophy, and maybe donate or do something to help you.
Sure.
How do they get a hold of you?
So you can go to my website at danielle4nv.com. It's spelled DANIELLEFORNV.com.
We wish you a lot of luck. Really. Hopefully we'll have you back on, assuming you win the primary and go for the general. And this is Dan Roberts for the Vegas Voice, The Last Word, reminding you that if you don't vote, you don't get a voice. Thank you, Danielle.
Thank you, Dan.